Indonesia's Citarum River is a poisoned lifeline.
The cheeky gene is known globally for its polluted water.
And that, in turn, is a threat to millions of farmers and their families.
Terus masuk air ke petani, biasanya
Because of the poor quality of the water, crop yields have dropped from the regular 9 kilos per harvest to 2.
per bataknya gitu.
Now the military has been called in to save the river.
The industrial zones near the Citarum will be converted into tourist resorts, tree plantations and housing units to ensure a lower impact on the environment.
When the water is dirty, the quality of life would be bad as well.
Indonesia is home to 131 river basins. They're fed by 5,000 waterways, snaking their way all across the country's landscape. Situ Cisanti is a lake in the mountains of West Java and the source of the Citarum. This is where the third longest river in the country begins its journey. It cascades through the agricultural heartlands of Indonesia before draining into the Java Sea. The Citarum is 279 kilometers long and provides a vital resource for over 25 million people. People's dependence on water here dates back thousands of years. The Naga tribe has been witness to this ancient connection with nature. They've survived here for countless generations on subsistence agriculture. The village of Kampung Naga is notable for its traditional houses, characterized by their functionality, simplicity, and modesty.
If we want to have a happy life, we need to live in harmony with nature.
Rice farmers like Fatima rely on traditional wisdom for irrigating their crops. It's a guiding principle for everyone here.
We irrigate our paddy fields with water from the Ciulan River. This water reaches our paddy fields via bamboo pipes. We've been using this method of irrigation since the time of my ancestors. We have never had any shortage of water in this village. For over 30 years, we have always had enough rice to eat.
The Naga consider themselves the guardians of this culture, which is why chemical pesticides are not welcome among farmers here. Instead, ancient rituals from the native Sundanese culture are considered essential for crops to thrive. Kang Ramat is a practitioner of Sundanese traditions and specializes in Pantanjala, an old practice where music is used to serenade plants.
This tree planting ceremony is a tradition that we've carried on from previous generations as a form of respect towards nature. Trees are living organisms too and need to be respected. It's their right and one that should be observed. Whether they're seedlings or trees, we always have to respect them. They need care and nurturing. Only then will trees be prepared to grow and produce food. This tradition helps us communicate with these plants effectively.
All their waste is repurposed without being disposed of in streams that flow into the Citarum River. It's the Naga's way of ensuring that communities downstream get clean drinking water.
We are blessed with what we have. That's why we share this natural abundance with other river communities further downstream. That's also why this water has to remain clean. Everyone should be able to use this water without any issues. Residents of Kampung Naga use this water for farming and for their household needs, too.
As Indonesia's population grew, practices like Pantanjala were gradually abandoned. Today, the country has 260 million people to feed. Here in the Bandung region or Regency, organic agricultural practices have been replaced by modern commercial rice farms. Today, West Java alone produces 480 million metric tons of rice per year. It's produced by 2 million farmers who depend on the Citarum's water to grow their crops. Ida Parmana has enjoyed a bumper harvest this season. He knows the importance of the river all too well.
I plant and harvest crops 5 times within a 2-year cycle. With seasonal crops, the harvest varies. During the current harvest season, I've collected around 8 tons of rice per hectare. We usually spray pesticides to keep a check on pests, but I only use them on these crops when necessary. We generally practice organic agriculture.
But farmers like him are struggling to meet the country's growing food needs. During dry seasons, many are forced to use strong chemical fertilizers in order to match demand. Studies suggest that pesticide overflow has caused a 30% rise in pollution levels in the Citarum.
Penggunaan pestisida yang dilakukan oleh petani di dataran di Citarum Hulu.
Regarding pesticide use, farmers who live in upstream areas of the Citarum River and grow mostly vegetables often do not follow the safety recommendations written on pesticide bottles. They end up making excessive use of pesticides, assuming it will be more effective. This has consequences. During rainy seasons, the fast-flowing rivers erode soil, while water-carrying pesticides from farmland flows into the Citarum. And that's what's causing the pollution.
The arrival of new industries has seen the environment deteriorate even further. Majalaya is a town located around 30 kilometers from the main rice plantations of West Java. It mushroomed during the textile sector boom here in the 20th century, when it earned its nickname, Dollar City. Over the years, nearly 3,000 factories have opened in the region, all chasing ever-increasing profits. In an incessant and fierce price war, some factory owners have decided to cut corners. Modern facilities for treating chemical waste were deemed too expensive. In the absence of strict environmental laws, a new wave of water pollution began.
Nah, ini terkait dengan pertama pipa siluman.
The term siluman in our language translates as invisible creatures.
Siluman itu dalam terminologi
So
kita,
pipa
ya,
siluman means invisible or illegal pipes.
yang gaib. Pipa yang tidak
The
sesuai
factories discharge their wastewater via these illegal, invisible pipes in order to bypass official treatment systems.
proses produksi.
The chemicals flow directly into the river.
Jadi di bypass langsung ke badan air penerima.
Violations of this kind have made the Citarum one of the dirtiest rivers in the world. Tons of toxic wastewater are dumped into the river every day.
Kecenderungan sekarang itu manusia bila ada peluang.
Humans will always resort to illegal methods when they see an opportunity.
Jadi oleh karena itu
That's why the law has to be strictly enforced in order to prevent industry from discharging wastewater into the river.
sampahnya ke sungai.
This wastewater pollution can be seen clearly by the naked eye after it's dumped by the factories.
Pencemaran yang dibuang oleh
It's obvious that it ends up in the Citarum.
yang mengalir ke Citarum.
Many factory owners still fail to consistently follow environmental regulations. They're monitored by Elements of the Environment, or Elangan, a local NGO that is battling to save the Citarum. Nearly 280 tons of toxic waste are dumped into the river every day.
Salam lestari. Oke, pada hari ini kita akan melakukan
Denny Rizwandi is head of the NGO.
dua perahu.
He's taking us to the industrial center of Majalaya, which is also at the center of Indonesia's efforts to battle water pollution.
Kita lagi menyusuri salah satu anak
Today, we're rafting along the Cikijin, a tributary of the Citarum.
Sungai Sekijing ini.
The pollution on the Citarum has become a global issue. While other regions in Indonesia are harvesting rice, we can only dream about it here because of pollution.
Sementara di sini hanya melamun.
It's a pity that we're unable to grow rice.
Bisa panen sawahnya.
Denny and his colleagues routinely test the water and share their findings with the government and local communities. Their aim is to keep a constant check on water pH levels, which indicate the concentration of hydrogen ions in the Citarum.
Seperti gini. Ini lakmus dimasukkan ke
We
air.
dip a litmus test strip in the water.
Kita angkat. Kita diukur
And then
sama,
measure the
yang
results
berada
using
di
this chart.
sampelnya ini. Ini ukurannya 7.
This water has a pH level of 7. It's of sound quality and within an acceptable range.
Airnya masuk baku mutu.
But Denny has recorded excessive pH levels on previous visits. The riverbanks are dotted with illegal waste pipes. These violations committed regularly by factories increase the water's pH level. A reading of pH 14 is the highest possible degree of alkalinity, high enough to burn human flesh. It's normally under the cover of darkness that factories unleash their chemical waste. That's when the Elangan team risk life and limb to conduct their surveys.
There are always risks involved in activism. Sometimes companies try to bribe us and tell us not to report their pollution. Sometimes, when we're witness to industrial waste being dumped, someone from the factory will come and try to interfere with our work.
Oke, jadi kalau dari sisi pengalaman kita 2000
From my experience, this is criminal intimidation, and they can be prosecuted if it hinders our environmental surveillance.
ketika kita melakukan pengawasan
The problem is that we've highlighted pollution on the Cikijin River to the authorities.
juga Ini sudah lama diangkat ke
But despite our efforts, the pollution continues.
selalu terjadi aja pencemaran.
Denny believes nearly 60% of the Citarum's fish species have died out. He has regularly recorded lead concentrations 1,000 times above levels permitted in the U.S., for example. The dirty water is now affecting food production in Bandung.
Jadi ini dampak terhadap warga bahwa hasil
Residents here are affected by the polluted water.
sawah daging katakanlah
Their paddy fields used to have good yields, but are now infertile.
Ya, bisa dilihat dari
You can see the condition of the water here.
alamiah sekarang mungkin bisa dilihat sendiri.
There's foam everywhere, created by chemicals dumped into the river.
Bekas sisa dari pencemaran.
If you talk to residents, they say their rice yields were more productive before this disaster.
Tadinya bisa menghasilkan panen yang lebih produktif.
Around 42,000 hectares of farmland rely on the river. Maman has no choice but to use that polluted water to irrigate his paddy fields.
Pencemaran ini termasuknya limbah.
Our water is polluted by household rubbish and industrial waste.
Jelek lah istilahnya.
Our water has become unfit for human use.
Limbah
The main problem is industrial waste.
kali yang
Farmers around the region have been complaining about the never-ending cleanup operations on this river.
biasanya
The poor quality of the water we have to use has dropped crop yields from the regular 9 kilos per harvest to 2.
2 kiloan lah per batanya gitu.
In addition to having to contend with the smell, farmers like Maman who live near the toxic water are vulnerable to skin-related ailments such as rashes and hair loss.
Dampaknya ke
The use of toxic water has affected us. People here have skin rashes, stomach aches, respiratory problems, and various other symptoms. The respiratory problems are due to the chemical fumes. Pregnant women and the elderly are also affected. Everyone here has had to seek medical treatment.
harus ke klinik.
But the Citarum's problems extend even further. The new industries created new jobs in Majalaya. Farmers left the fields to pursue new careers. Majalaya's population exploded, but without any infrastructure development. Landfills in Bandung can handle about 2,000 tons of waste per day. But the city and the region now produce around 7,000 tons of waste per day. A large proportion of it ends up going straight into the Citarum River. But there's a growing fight against household pollution and increased awareness among locals. Activists like 5 February are trying to change people's behavior, starting with the younger generation. She's also helped to set up waste segregation banks where locals can sell their refuse or exchange it for new products. This one, which includes a playground, is called the Park of Joy.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Yes, fine. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Yes, fine.
Her program is called Jaga Kampung, Jaga Lembur, or Protect the Village, Protect the Hometown. Nearly 70% of the waste found in the Citarum comes from households. That's why more than 300 such waste banks have been established across Bandung Regency.
We're spreading awareness about waste segregation. Why? To prevent non-biodegradable trash from piling up everywhere. We teach children to separate their waste and we provide incentives. Residents can use this waste bank and exchange plastic for groceries or mobile phone credit. They can also use it to pay their water or electricity bills.
Phi then disposes of the plastic collected by feeding it to waxworms, which are happy to munch away on polyethylene bags. Innovative initiatives like these are part of Operation Citarum Harum, or Fragrant Citarum. a multi-million-dollar cleanup operation launched in 2018.
It was dubbed one of the dirtiest rivers in the world, which made me feel extremely sad. So I took this up as a challenge to prove that with our governance, we can make the Citarum a clean river. It may not become the cleanest, but it will still be better. My key task is to tidy up the half of the West Java region that contains a third of our population across a total area of about 680,000 hectares.
Citarum Harum is a multi-pronged undertaking aimed at cleaning up the river by 2025. The operation has been divided into 22 sectors, overseen by military commanders. The decisions they make are backed by local government ministries, community groups, and the police. Bandung is a flood-prone region, especially during the rainy season. Last year, 50,000 hectares of farmland were flooded for 3 weeks, decimating rice production in the region. Second Lieutenant Dadan Haidir in Sector 4 briefs frontline teams on raising awareness amongst Bandung's residents.
The main issue during floods is household waste, which is swept away by the river. You need to reassure people not to get disheartened by pollution, but they shouldn't ignore it either. In the end, our aim is to educate the public to change their behavior. We need them to understand that after heavy rainfalls, rivers are blocked by household waste, and that's why it floods.
Teams are then dispatched across the region to keep a check on household pollution. Back at headquarters, operations are closely coordinated. For a project at this scale to succeed, commanders require pinpoint accuracy.
Our aim is to prevent water overflowing to other areas. We have to cooperate with teams from outside Majalaya.
Garbage is being extracted from the Citarum before rains hit the region. The team can't afford any delays because when floods occur, polluted water can flow into agricultural lands, causing large-scale economic destruction. Colonel Didik Suswandi is on the front lines all year round, ready to react to any eventuality.
We have to handle household rubbish coming from various tributaries. We use nets and filters to catch plastic waste before it enters the Citarum and causes further harm. We've increased the river's width to 50 meters to date, and its depth to 3 meters. We couldn't increase it to 7 meters because we lack the right modern equipment. Despite the challenges, we've been able to dredge this river using our existing excavators and long boom cranes.
The more garbage that is deposited in the river, the greater the likelihood of floods in Majalaya. It's a race against time for the military. And with climate change increasing the chances of irregular rainfalls, the task is an increasingly challenging one. President Joko Widodo set the country an ambitious goal. He wants waters from the Citarum to be safe for drinking by 2025. But rising industrial pollution isn't helping matters.
The total number is huge. Around 600 industries have the potential to cause harm to the environment, so we need to keep an eye on them constantly. We have sector-wise surveillance, starting with sectors 1 to 8, up to 21 and 22. We've invested considerable manpower to cover these sectors, allowing us to put offenders under pressure. By working together with the community and concerned parties, we've managed to make progress in cleaning the Citarum.
untuk care kepada Citarum.
Wastewater treatment is expensive. One plant costs between $100,000 and $1.5 million, depending on capacity. For most textile mills struggling in a very competitive market, that's just too steep a price to pay. With little to no environmental surveillance, chemical waste is discharged straight into the Citarum.
Waktu awal penugasan dulu.
During the early days of the operation, hidden pipes were easy to detect. Pipes used by irresponsible companies to discharge wastewater. The discharged wastewater did not go through any treatment, and the factories just dumped it in the water. It was done very brazenly. We documented all these violations. The companies did it very openly and just took it for granted. We have now put things in order and are still on our guard to ensure there are no violations.
Environmental laws are being strengthened as well. Commanders have now been given the power to collect evidence against such factories. 3 facilities have had their wastewater management licenses revoked. Companies that pollute the Citarum may now face out-of-court administrative penalties from the West Java authorities.
Di-warning dulu sekali, masih bandel.
Offenders are given 2 warnings. If they still continue to pollute the Citarum, we block their wastewater pipes with concrete. This action serves as a reminder to violators. If they continue to break the law, the police will launch criminal proceedings. Last year, we recorded 263 violations, and this year about 47. This makes a total of 300 cases. For me, an outstanding job.
Jadi itu sudah sangat luar biasa.
The West Java authorities now have a total of 468 companies on a watch list. Following changes in legislation, all waste disposal pipes in Indonesia must be visible for inspection. Factories are also required to self-monitor and submit lab sample results every 6 months. These changes have brought about a change in attitudes. The Guna Jaya factory has been producing textiles for the global market since 1982. Alex Santosa is proud of his company's waste treatment plant.
Tapi karena ada visi yang besar dan
We have a big vision. We set high standards as we have a conscience.
maksudnya ini hati nurani juga ya.
My hope for this company is for these ideals to be passed on from generation to generation. Earning profits is not our sole purpose. I often think about what we can do to ensure my children and the next generation in general can be proud of this company. I'm also chairman of the Indonesian Employers Association, and I want to set an example for everyone.
The director invites us on a tour of the waste processing unit inside.
Jadi di perusahaan kami ini
Praise the Lord, we've been able to meet the quality standards set by the government.
yang ditetapkan oleh pemerintah
The last ones were defined by Waste Treatment Director Mr. Harris.
sudah direvisi setelah
They've been revised since the Citarum Harum operation was launched.
Untuk mendapatkan pengolahan
In order to get the best waste management results, we needed a long settling period.
waktu tinggal yang cukup lama.
Here, you can see the large tanks we have.
Kami memiliki bak-bak yang besar.
The process of cleansing the water of all visible pollutants takes 24 hours. Another 2.5 days are required for the bacteria to be eliminated.
Untuk proses dari bakteri sendiri,
For bacteria processing, we use an aerobic wastewater treatment system where we continuously mix the wastewater with oxygen. We also use an aerator to inject air into the wastewater to ensure the bacterial ecosystem is maintained, and we monitor it every day in the lab. We also apply the latest aerator technology in our factory, which enables us to ensure that the waste is treated properly.
Since Operation Citarum Harum started in 2018, violations by industrial enterprises have been decreasing. But equipping every factory with waste treatment plants is a daunting challenge.
Untuk mendapatkan hasil pengolahan limbah.
Ensuring sewage treatment according to government quality standards is not easy. Cleaning up our waste has been a very long journey. We started building our wastewater plant at Gunajaya in 2012. We first had to find the right consultants to come up with the best pipe system for our needs. Once we had the best possible combination, we worked with our consultants to work on the implementation. The wastewater treatment plant eventually turned out to be very expensive.
Projects to rehabilitate the Citarum River in West Java continue, despite additional challenges like COVID-19. The river also supplies water for 3 hydroelectric power plants. They generate 1,400 megawatts of electricity, powering local industries and the economy. One such dam on the Citarum is the Jatilahur Reservoir. Polluted water can damage its turbines, lowering electricity production. Didi Irwana Sujana stands guard to ensure that only clean water enters the dam's reservoir. He's on the lookout for pollutants reaching the Citarum as its waters converge with inflows from the Cibirium River, known for carrying fertilizer and household waste.
Anggota sekarang lagi pemantauan sungai.
Our team members are constantly monitoring the river. We're also keeping a check on the streams flowing in from the Cimahi region. Usually the polluted water comes from the Cimahi region. It's very dirty, very smelly, and causes body rashes for local people who use the water. But you can see that the water coming from the Citarum is better. It's clean because we monitor it every day.
Didi recovers 2 tons of plastic every month. The recovered waste is shredded into flakes and sent off to string and rope factories across West Java. Regular desilting increases the operational life of the hydropower station, in the process ensuring a constant supply of electricity to millions of people in West Java. The Citarum Harum operation also aims to rehabilitate the ecosystem surrounding the river. A tree planting drive has been launched to stop erosion on the riverbanks. The increased tree populations help to filter carbon that makes its way into the river. Trees also reduce carbon dioxide in the air. The responsibility for planting them was assigned to Infantry Lieutenant Sugisuro.
Our task here is to conserve the forest that has suffered from mismanagement. We've managed to plant around 5,000 trees of different species, such as sturdy fruit trees. We looked at the issues of this community. They were united with us in planting tree varieties such as protected forest species, crops and vegetation. People here are now able to enjoy a balanced life. They can maintain their livelihoods while not overusing the riverbanks. These trees can now prevent soil erosion.
25% out of a planned 10,000 hectares have already been reforested. The tree plantation drive aims to reinforce the river's banks and stop further erosion.
This year, we planted 50 million trees across West Java, a majority of them planted next to the Citarum River. We call this the Happiness Project. People who have reason to feel happy contribute to plants on their birthday, anniversary, or wedding. For example, someone got married in West Java, and we got 10 new trees in the area.
The project is aided by modern technology. Digital methods are now being used to measure, monitor, and support the survival of these trees. Local startup JJAC operates a tree management system that uses artificial intelligence to collect and analyze ecological data. It's headed by Arfan Arlanda.
As we all know, plants take in carbon dioxide and emit oxygen. This is important, not just for the Citarum River, but also for people and vegetation in the area. Trees themselves help to prevent soil erosion. They're able to filter pollutants out of the air and ground. This is why water that flows into the river will be of a better quality.
Arlanda's app collects data to predict and calculate the impact the newly planted trees have in renaturalizing their environments. The software, which is still undergoing development, includes image mapping and identification programs to collect data. It uses artificial intelligence to present real-time information and analysis of reforestation efforts.
The data we've collected is truly diverse. We now know the soil conditions, tree coverage, and deforested areas. Our application also enables us to identify the soil fertility rate and see whether planted forests are doing well. We also make use of the additional data from satellites and sensors to measure and analyze other environmental pollutants.
The app also has a remote sensing feature that collects data using satellite imagery. An aerial map also collects data from drones. The solution supports and maintains a database tracking thousands of tree species and their survival.
Right now, we have data on more than 15,000 tree species in this application. Based on this information, we can carry out a plantation drive and monitor it over the years. We use a QR code to identify each tree, like this, for example. We use that information to plot a forest in the long term. If we have a vast area and we want to help an individual tree, then we are able to conduct sampling like this. The QR code enables us to identify each tree.
A sizable proportion of Indonesia's 270 million citizens lack easy access to safe drinking water. Supporting the cleanup of the Citarum and the reforestation of land lining its banks has become a matter of national security. And everyone is pitching in. Environmental activists like Irma Hatubarat are planting vetiver plants on the Citarum's riverbanks. Vetiver is a grass plant with strong roots that strengthen embankments and help to prevent landslides.
Water is the source of life. Water is life. When the water is dirty, the quality of life would be bad as well. So with the vetiver, they could have the clean water. With the vetiver, they could stop the flood. With the vetiver, they could prevent the erosion and sedimentation, and improving not only the quality of the soil and the water, but improving the quality of life of the people along the riverbank.
Irma Hatubarat's plantations have inspired new ideas for the Citarum Delta in the Muara Gembong ecotourism area. environmental groups have planted 15,000 mangrove trees at the confluence of the Citarum and the Java Sea. The tourist destination area is managed by Darman. Mangroves here filter waste from the river, preventing it from entering the sea.
Mengapa wisata mangrove yang kita
We have an ecotourism project based on mangroves.
karena selain
They're crucial because they aid in the absorption of toxic materials.
untuk menyerap
This waste is able to travel here due to the negligence of irresponsible factory owners who dispose of their waste in the river.
pinggirnya itu dilalui oleh pabrik-pabrik.
Many people are still unaware of a mangrove tree's functions.
Dan memang masih banyak masyarakat yang belum sadar itu.
The industrial wastewater can be absorbed by its roots. The water becomes so clean that critical habitats become safe and healthy enough for fish and crabs to live there in peace.
Itu akan aman di dalamnya.
Ecotourism havens like Muara Gembong might just be the way forward for reviving environments under severe stress. This mangrove forest at the mouth of the Citarum ensures the safety of marine creatures and the waters that sustain their habitat.
Kualitas air di Muara Gembong ini,
In terms of water quality in Muara Gembong, look at our location.
Muara Gembong ini adalah
Over there in northern Jakarta, the water is muddy and black in color due to household and industrial waste.
hitam dengan
But, praise to God, the water over here is still clean.
di kita
We need to educate all stakeholders and policymakers
para pemangku kepentingan
so that they can look at the conservation of the mangroves for our future generations and their survival.
generasi kita yang akan datang.
Indonesia's efforts towards rehabilitating this embattled river could reap lasting rewards. It's estimated that a clean Citarum would bring over $280 million in economic benefits per year. The world is facing the rising threat of climate change and a reduction in fresh water supplies. But efforts to restore life-sustaining waterways like those in Indonesia show that man-made changes to the environment are reversible, and a sustainable approach to nature might be an achievable reality.